America's Eye Doctor, innovator. We got a great show for you today. Friends and family, tap in as we dive deep into the mind of the one and only Dr. Dorothy Hitchmoth. Let's go. This is a Defocus Media production.
Audio Jungle.
What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover. Super excited today because we have a rock star and all-star in the building today. We have an ambassador of hope, America's favorite optometrist, America's best optometrist, the greatest innovator in eye care. This young lady holds so many hats and has done so much for our industry that has pushed it forward that I just feel blessed to be on a panel with her this evening. Friends and family, I'd like to welcome our colleague, America's Eye Doctor, Dr. Dorothy. How are you doing today, my friend?
Well, after that introduction, how could I be doing bad? But I got a lot to match up to after that intro. But thank you very much for your kind words. I appreciate that.
Hey, I'm super excited to have you because I've had the opportunity to know you for quite a bit of time now. I think it's been over 3 years. And, when I met you, I said, hey, I need you on the podcast. And then I saw you again. I said, hey, I need you on the podcast. Then we sit on some boards together. I said, hey, I need you on the podcast. And finally, we were able to make it happen after many, many years. But I know you're a busy young lady and I can be busy at times. But I'm super excited to have you because, again, you are just the definition of optometry and definition of greatness when it comes to optometry. You have done so much. And today I really want to peel back the layers of who you are as a person, and also talk about some of the impact and some of the great things and where the future of optometry is heading to, right? Because you have great insight. But before we jump too far ahead of ourselves, let's get to know you a little bit better. So if you don't mind maybe telling us a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you went to school, and where you are today, because that building that you're in, that room that you're in, believe it or not, you guys, this is actually her practice. So I'm going to let her kind of dive deep into that in a little bit as well. But let's get this party started, Dr. Dorothy, if you don't mind taking it from the top, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And you said one key word, young lady. That just got me excited because I've been in practice for 28 years now. And and those words come out of my mouth and I can hardly believe it. Right. Yeah. And I look back and now I get asked this question a lot, where you been, what you done. I'll get a little personal because I think in order for people to really understand me, in order for them to understand that inspiration and gratitude is what it's all about, it helps to share a little bit. I grew up all over the world, little known fact.
Okay.
My father was career military. So I was born in the middle of the Vietnam War, which would sort of tell you my age. I lived in Europe. I lived in Asia. I lived all around the United States. And I have immigrant grandparents on both sides who immigrated here to the United States. So I had a global perspective before I had an American perspective. And so I really appreciate being a woman living in this century in this country. It's really amazing the opportunities that I've had that, the women before me did not have. And so to me, it's like, just show me the next shiny thing so I can go after it. And, having that gift, being handed that gift of the opportunity to have an education means that you have an opportunity to advocate. And for me, I understand what that means. And so I would say, my career, as I said, has been 28 years long. I went to NECO. I'm residency trained, VA residency trained. Nice. I stayed in the VA system for 22 years. I am a recovering academic, is how I self-describe all the time, because I'm crazy. I also had a private practice for that entire tenure. Now, it was smaller and more specific and highly specialized. But since I retired from hospital practice and academia, I thought I would go straight into industry, because I've also been involved in innovation in industry that whole time. I love new gadgets. I love new stuff. I love stuff that is truly focused on making the quality of life of patients better.
Yeah.
And so again, just all these little shiny things for me to chase after. So I kind of did it all and I also, have 3 boys that are now essentially grown and 2 grandchildren. And I dragged them through the mud all along the way, whether they wanted to go through it or not. But hopefully they're all doing great. But hopefully set a good example for them. And my goal is for them to see what it takes and be good advocates for others that need their help. So yeah, I expanded this private practice, which we just did another expansion, which you can kind of behind me here. This is our conference room and part of our innovation center. I get asked to consult all the time on all different types of products. I've narrowed my focus more recently. So obviously in private practice, but also now the vice president of clinical affairs at Percept Corp. And I'll talk a little bit about that maybe a little later on. But the greatest thrill of my optometric career, I would say, is being able to develop relationships with legislators, and my long time tenure in the AOA, that really helped me understand how you change things for people that need you most. And a lot of times it's through public health policy influence by changing the laws. I guess one of my little plaques over there on behind the chairs is an award that I was given by the AOA, and I don't like bragging, but I want people to know that when you go do something that is right, it's not because you're going to get some fancy blue glass award.
Right.
It's because you're going to do something right by patients. So when I first came to the Outer Banks, rural northern New Hampshire and Vermont, our scope of practice sucked. It was no good. And patients were suffering by that because there are not enough providers. There weren't enough providers then. There are not enough providers now, in a much worse way. And so having the ability to practice full scope, I was mad as hell because I just went through 8 years of training plus residency. And I did medical optometry and ocular disease, and I was being told by some person, you can't do that. Well, that didn't sit well with me. And I know the patients needed us. So I went chasing after scope and changed the laws 4 times, twice in both states. First as a legislative chair, and then as the president of our state organization. And if I could point to one thing that I look back, you can do all kinds of cool stuff in industry and be part of innovation, but it's advocating for the patients that I would say I'm the most proud of, because now everything here has changed, right? So we're able to recruit providers to fill the gaps, although that's a whole nother discussion that's becoming a problem. And I was just asked to write an editorial, which I do often, and they said, hey, can you tell us, can you do this piece? Not enough doctors, too many patients. I'm like, yeah, I can. Let me tell you what that looks like, right?
Well, and I like that. And I want to expand off of that because, you have done so much. And you mentioned something earlier, that global exposure, right? Being able to live all across the world helps you out tremendously, not just from a business sense, because you see things differently and it makes you think outside of the box, but also because it allows you to connect with patients better. Because we all know that we have a diverse set of patients that walk through the office. And when you're able to connect with them and mention something maybe from their background, it just makes that doctor-patient relationship more vibrant, more trustworthy, more of a true relationship where they're going to tell you everything. And as a result of this solid foundation that you have, I really want to touch on the 21st century office, right? What does the 21st century optometric office look like in today's society? Because all the things that you touched on, from having a better relationship with patient to expand in scope, you got to have an office to be able to uphold those things that you mentioned. So I'm curious to know, what does that look like to you? What does that look like in your practice? Because clearly you're all about cutting edge technology. So let's spend a little bit of time on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I actually get asked this question quite a bit, or have been asked that question quite a bit lately. And, in some ways, the practice of the office of the 21st century is just like the practice of the 20th century.
Okay.
And there are some things about optometry that shouldn't change. And those things, which should be part of the 21st century, we should carry on some of the great things that we already do. And one of the great stories that optometry sometimes tells well and sometimes doesn't, and that we are embedded in our communities and we look like our patients for the most part. There's a scarce Medicare county where we do not exist. We tend to have longitudinal relationships with our patients, whether if you're on a city block or out in a practice like mine, and our patients trust us. So I would encourage people to get settled in a practice, develop longitudinal relationships with patients because it matters. Those longitudinal relationships engender trust. And there's even health outcomes measures that say if you got the same docs, whether it's primary care doc, your eye care, you have better outcomes.
Yes.
You live a better life. So that's something I wouldn't change. Remember to be, part of your community. Things I would change is some of the things that you all are doing. I was very excited for you and your buddy Adam to come to NECO, and I'm going to brag on you just a little bit. We gave you guys an award for the work you're doing to diversify optometry and ensure that there are optometrists that look like the patients they serve in their communities. And I think that's real important. I mean, I was so excited that you two are the ones that were recipients of that award, because that's part of the promise.
Yeah.
To take
And I
care
appreciate that. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Howard Purcell and the whole team and your board for understanding the importance of that, right? And the thing that blows my mind, and it's just very rewarding to see the students. The students want it more than anyone else out there, right? And these are students of all backgrounds. When I was at the school, they come up to me and they say, "Thank you. How can they be involved? How can they, make an impact and make a change?" So clearly there's something special over at that school where, it's really changing the way that we look at optometry school. It's changing how we go to different colleges, and they're not taking that traditional route. They're really thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you learned earlier, it is that global perspective. But, I then came back to Boston, which is an international city. And I think NECO is an international college of optometry. And let me just be clear, I'm plugging NECO here. We have all walks of life, like literally. We have in a city that is one of the most diverse. And so it's a great place to train because of that, right? But, we all disperse back into our respective communities, or we're inspired, hopefully, through that process to go somewhere where someone really needs us, where we can be not just our best person, but the best person for the community. So, the 21st century, as I said, looks a little bit like some of the great things that we've done already. But in terms of business and innovation, I think there's some super exciting stuff going on. When I consult with companies, I'm like, listen, we need cheaper, smaller, faster, better. Like, it's easy, cheaper, smaller, faster, better, because we need to be able to do our jobs in a way that doesn't completely, eliminate our ability to earn a living, right? We need to be incentivized to do the job that we do. And so I think what you're going to see, you'll see more mobility in the devices that we use. I mean, there's some great devices on the market now. You'll see a lot of AR headsets. I think that's going to come and go.
Yeah.
But what will come from that process, and I'll tell you a funny story about a 2-megapixel camera and why I think this, is the processing and the manufacturing that's required to miniaturize and to mobilize our ability to do diagnostic testing on patients in small spaces all around the world. So that is an exciting trend. I mean, I could name all kinds of companies that I think are doing some amazing things and that will pull us into the next phase.
Well, I want to expand on that a little bit, because you mentioned something, smaller spaces, right? Do you feel like the dream of having a huge, large practice will change in the next 5 to 10 years with innovation, simply because of what you said, smaller, quicker, I can't remember everything exactly, but you think the practice is going to change in regards to the size that most folks want because of the technology and innovation that is there?
I think we're going to have more flexibility, right? Everybody wants a nice office, right? Real estate is less expensive in a rural area. It's more expensive in the city. I'm in a rural area. Like, it's not a big deal to have a big room like this. It's a big deal to have a big room like this in the middle of New York City, right? It's not happening. You fit 3 exam rooms behind me over here. And, but to meet the demands of the overall public, which are blowing are insane, and I could talk about all those statistics all night long, but not enough doctors, too many patients. We're going to need to have spaces that are modular, that are flexible, right? Okay. And so that you can move around your space, you can change things, you can bring in new technology, and it doesn't mean you have to build a whole nother building, right? I mean, those are the things that are going to win. I think that mobile I talked about, where do I think telehealth is going? And I've been involved in telehealth since 2002. We didn't even call it telehealth then. That's going to have its place. I think it's going to largely be focused in primary care. Hospital at home is a real thing that is being looked at right now. I think telemental health is like the most amazing thing ever, where you can reach people all over the world and match them to people that have mental health experience. Same with nutritional and wellness. I think we're going to be able to access people or providers in that regard. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of tech. There's a little tiny bit of telehealth, but we got these round things. They are really hard to examine remotely. And I'm not against telehealth. I mean, I think it's a great use. We're all going to do it to some degree in some form in the future. So yeah, that is part of the 21st century. How we do it is still developing. So we need to refine that. And it's going to be, and what will drive that, I think, is this absolute demand to triage patients medically. We have a 7-to-1 caregiver to provider statistic right now. By the time I hit Medicare age, which isn't that long from now,
it's 21. What are you talking about?
It's going to be 3-to-1. There's going to be nobody. I look at my 3 boys and I'm like, okay, who am I coming to live with? Because there's going to be no nursing home capacity. It's the wives that go like this. I'm like, come on, you know you love me. But, we're going to have nursing homes filled to capacity. We will have assisted living filled to capacity. We have a huge public health challenge ahead of us, which will also drive that optometric office of the 21st century. We're going to have more offerings in one space, and that's across the spectrum, now I don't do retail optical. I am hardcore medical, but I work with 2 other vision source practices that have the full armamentarium within a really close area. And we serve thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. There's no ophthalmologist within 40 miles of my office. Wow. I am across the driveway from a critical access hospital. I am 15 minutes from a federally qualified health center and 2 urgent care centers. I take all the emergencies, and I need to get it right every single day. So I feel grateful. I feel needed. It's a huge challenge. If you want a challenge, come on out. We can use some help over here. So, recruitment is a challenge here. But, like I said, the Office of the 21st Century is going to have all the offerings from optical to medical and surgical. And we're already there, right? We are already there with our education. We now have 18 states that are by scope, have laser lumps, bumps, injections, and procedures approved. There are not enough ophthalmologists. This is very clear. And there is no clear pathway for them to increase their numbers right now. And it's the same across all of medicine. I mean, there's days where I get people in here, I'm like, oh, sweetheart, I'm like, I know exactly what's going on with you, but that's your heart. So guess what? We're going to have a short trip over here to the emergency room. Or no, that's a stroke. We're going to have a short trip over here in the emergency room. So it's serious stuff. It's serious stuff.
Yeah. We got Heather Harrington tuning in this evening. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate the love and support. And she agrees. We definitely need someone promoting our jobs in this industry, talking about how amazing this industry is and how cool our jobs are as well, right? She also mentioned something earlier when we were talking about relationships. Something they do in their practice is write simple notes about patients in the EHR. If they're going on a trip, having a baby, ask about it at the next visit, and the patients love it. And I do the same thing as well. And it's gotten to the point now where I don't even have to take the notes. I remember it because my patients are like my family, right? I see them out in my community. I practice in my community. They invite me to different events. Yeah. I got one patient. She's so sweet that she's giving me free courtside Duke basketball tickets, right? I mean, that's how of an intimate relationship that I have with my patients, and it's because building that trust, building that rapport, being in the community, that longitudinal deal that you did discuss earlier. It's very important to make sure that you're making these things happen. But no, I agree with you. Having this type of office, this type of setting, we got to change our mindset. And I kind of like to spend a little bit of time on your mindset. Like, what made you, shift the way that you look at optometry? I know there's that global aspect, but that's one piece of it. But when you're actually out practicing, it's kind of hard to change your mindset to say, okay, I'm not going to do teleoptometry. I'm going to just continue to see patients in my practice. I'm not going to use this type of medication. I'm going to continue to do it the old school way. Like, what really clicked to make that change? Because there's some optometrists out there that's actually holding our profession back because they don't want to see things change. And I want to be able to hear this conversation coming from someone that's been practicing for 28 years, that's in a rural area, that have seen all walks of life come through their practice. What was that mindset shift that really took place for you?
For me, there was no shift. I thought this is how everybody practiced. So the shift for me was realizing that optometry is fairly segmented, right? There are lots of different types of practices, and that my experience wasn't the same as others. And not everybody chose the same path as me. So I don't think my path is the only path. I just think it's becoming an important one across the profession. And, I'm going to pause for 1 second and say to Dr. Harrington and Dr. Glover, you just gave out one of the best tactics ever that folks in the audience can adopt. And that's making those little bitty notes and getting to know your patients and remembering who they are. That's it. That's relationship building. That's trust, engenderment. It means a lot. But, for me, it wasn't a mind shift. I have been practicing in the 21st century since 28 years ago. So, what do I say to my colleagues, I think might be the question. If you thought optometry was a certain kind of profession, if you thought optometry was, I'm going to learn how to refract, I'm going to learn how to help people see better, this is awesome. And that's what we do. And it's the core of what we do. If you got into optometry to, help take care of people with complex binocular vision problems, that's core. I mean, that's kind of what I thought I was going to do in the really early days. And that has served me to this day because I work with so many patients who are neurologically complex. Those are awesome things and they're at the core, but layering on top of that is going to be required. You will be called on You will be called to duty in the healthcare system. You will have no choice. So get going. Like expand your mind, expand your horizons. And the number one piece of advice, get a mentor. Like I didn't learn all this stuff that I learned by myself. I learned a lot from my patients because they demanded that I did. I'm not going anywhere. Don't you refer me. I'm not driving 100 miles. Oh, okay. Well then, right? That changed, and you get a 86-year-old going like this to you. It's like, okay, okay. But get a mentor. Like I offer mentorship all the time. I have a whole host of people that I try to help and say, like, don't be scared. Even my new associate here, she is residency trained. She practiced in Oklahoma, in a state with a broad scope of practice. And she's like, oh boy, I feel like I'm doing my fellowship here. And I think she'd be okay with me sharing that comment with the audience here. But find your mentor. You can always get better. You should always get better. Practice is what it is. It means you're practicing to get better every single day. Go get it. Go get it.
I love it. I think mentorship is huge. I've been blessed to have some incredible mentors from all backgrounds, all walks of life. And, I always tell folks when it comes to mentorship, I look at it as being bi-directional, right? You're going to be the mentor, but you're also going to be the mentee. You got to play both sides. And when you're able to accept that, that changes the entire dynamic of what mentorship truly means. Now, I want to take a step back. You mentioned something earlier, and I hope everybody really heard it. And you essentially were talking about the importance of patients being advocates for us, right? I would love to discuss patient advocacy and how that impacts better health outcomes, but also impacts how we practice and how we expand our scope. Because I do feel like there is a place where if our patients are talking about how great we are, then that makes it easier for us to make that connection in legislation, right? So maybe if you don't mind spending a little time in regards to that, because being in a rural area, your patients are your ambassadors. They're advocating for all the greatness that you do because there's no one around you. And the skills that you get are no different from skills from someone else that went to New England College of Optometry. So we're all well versed in this. It's just a matter of us being able to leverage it and wanting to use it as well.
100%, and it takes practice. But the patients really demand it, right? And if you look back at the history of advocacy in optometry, it really has started in many ways in the rural outer banks and come inward, right, to our city centers. The states that are the most rural had the broadest scope of practice early on. The states that are less rural and who have a higher density of subspecialists, a higher density of ophthalmologists, and quite frankly, optometrists, sort of have changed last. Why? Because the patients demanded that we perform at our highest potential. And so we've had patients testify in every single hearing that I've ever participated in, and they tell our story for us. That's still going to continue to happen. That won't change. And they know us, and the other thing is we take care of legislators. Yeah. That's the secret sauce. That's been, I think, the key to success. I mean, obviously I can't say who my patients are, but I will tell you, I could run down a long list. So I can pick up the phone and call up key people in the legislature here. But likewise, I have to make sure that when they call on me, that I'm there for them. So getting involved in the political scene, it's not a choice. It's a mandate. So, the Speaker of the House in here in New Hampshire says, Dorothy, I need you to come do X, Y, Z, or get on X, Y. Okay, yes, sir, whatever you want. Right? I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to be the expert he's asked me to be. And I'm gonna do what I can to contribute whatever to his agenda as well, which is always about helping people, usually at the state level, not national politics.
And I love that. It something that we got to look at as eye care professionals. Even if you don't feel comfortable getting in front of folks to speak and have that conversation, you can still help. You can give time or you can give money, right? Give all the above or something, but you have to contribute to our profession. You have to partner with the AOA. You have to partner with the AOSA. They're the future generations, right? We got to make sure that we're investing on both ends if we want to continue to expand our scope and protect the current rights that we have. And it all starts in that exam lane with that patient. Everything that you tell them, they're going to take to heart. They're coming to you because you're the expert. So make sure you truly have a great conversation with them and educate them more than anything. Because the amount of time we spend in that exam lane with those patients is more than they're going to get with their PCP. That's for damn sure. So we want to
Yeah.
make sure that when they go out and they vote, they always think of their optometrist top of mind, of being that one that was able to answer all their questions, not about just the eye, but the entire body, because we know that this eye is connected to everything that happens within this body. So it's very important to make sure that we focus on that.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, and continue to proselytize, because that is the message that I want young ODs to hear, and even those who have been in practice a long time. I was on the AOA PAC board for, I don't know, forever, and I'm still raising money on behalf of my patients, right, to change the opportunities that they have for good health care, and that's what it's all about. So I agree. I couldn't agree more. And the whole 21st century thing, it is about advocacy. It is about advocacy, for sure.
Now I want to switch gears and get into some innovation a little bit, because I know that you mentioned earlier, you said that you're vice president of Percept, and I know that's a big deal. It's some cutting edge technology. I've had some conversations in the past with some folks behind that brand, and I know there's new leadership over there. And there's some big names that are part of that whole organization. So if you don't mind, maybe discussing some of the cutting edge technology, because when I think about the 21st century, I think about that organization. So if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit about that.
Well, that's music to my ears now, isn't it? Yeah, so to sort of carry on that conversation about the 21st century, you know, so Percept has this very broad patent portfolio. We have a specific product in the market right now, but really what we're going to do is, or what we hope to do, what I hope will happen, is that people, the public, and optometrists and ophthalmologists and neurologists will think of glasses as a therapeutic, as a preventative, as a way to improve your quality of life beyond what it does right now. These little things right here help us see better far, help us see better near. They help children in school who struggle. But imagine your glasses acting as a warning system of a medical emergency, right? A cardiac emergency, let's say. Imagine your glasses having the capability to tell you that you are about to become severely, or you are severely hypoglycemic, or you're on that edge. Imagine your glasses telling you you've had a rotten night's sleep and you're going to fall asleep at the wheel. You're a nighttime truck driver. That's not good, right? Yeah. And there's lots of gadgets that do this now, but this is something that touches the face in the US of 200 million people. We would be crazy not to take advantage of this very important wearable and turn it into something very special. And that's really what we're working to do at Percept. Same with lenses. Lenses will be able to instantaneously change. Our frames will take on changes that are instantaneous, and spectacles will be electronic. Wow. Right? This is exciting stuff. I mean, we have a product right now called MyWear. It essentially, in the simplest terms, blocks out all wavelengths of light except this very narrow band of green light. Why did we choose to create a pair of spectacles that blocks out all light except green? Well, because some really smart folks at Duke and Harvard and Stanford said that might be a good idea. We have clinical trials ongoing right now, but what the science tells us, and this is amazing to me, there are non-image forming, I'm going to get all academic here for a second, there are non-image forming retinal ganglion cells that go straight through our brain, through the thalamic region, through the LGN, right? Through the centers that control our heart rate, our sleep patterns, our pain. And so MyWear, we know or what MyWear does is it helps support people with migraine. So when you put only green in front of your eyeballs, I don't even have a pair sitting here because I didn't want to have a commercial. I wanted to make sure I was staying real. But when you put on this pair of funky looking green glasses and get ready Expo West, because I'll be like walking around with these crazy things, for most of the meeting. And it mitigates your migraine pain, and migraine knocks you out of commission where you can't function, where it's taken over your life. I mean, that's a real quality of life change. And so that's what Percept is actually about. I'm one of the investors in the company. I don't just work for the company. Like, we want to change the world. Through the view that optometrists, especially in North America, have the privilege of operating. So that's what it's all about.
Wow. That's game changing. Absolutely. Because you know how many patients that walk into my practice that have migraines? I see several throughout the day, every single day, right? So I love hearing technology and innovation that's expanding the portfolio of resources and tools in our tool belt to be able to help those patients, right? Because I always want to make sure I find the right solution. And I just feel like right now I'm in the best time ever to practice optometry, right? I mean, you look at the technology, you look at teleoptometry, you look at the opportunity of patients at your fingertips. You will never starve being an optometrist. You will never be bored being an optometrist. There's always a patient out there that needs your help. And to your point earlier, we need more. So I know everyone's getting all bogged down by all these optometry schools that are out there that are coming, but there's a true problem. We don't have enough optometrists, so we need more schools, and we need more applicants, and we need to get quality applicants. So it's up to us as optometrists to talk about how great this profession is. Always bring high school students, middle school students, hell, even elementary school students into your practice and introduce them to optometry, introduce them to the innovation piece, because that sells itself. Because we're so blessed to be able to have the functional aspect, but the medical piece and the retail piece, combining both of those layers, it just changes the game of how cool of a profession that we're actually in.
It really is cool. It really is. I would not choose anything else. And if that's a message to put out tonight, I would say this is awesome. I have fun in here every day. There's days when it's hard and there's work late, but it's worth it. You're really helping people, and they appreciate it. And people that are happy in their jobs, it becomes a part of their life. Absolutely. They tend to live longer, right? And that's a whole nother 21st century opportunity. What's our role in prevention and wellness? I'm on the Ocular Wellness and Nutrition Society Executive Board. And our single goal is to really make sure optometry understands the public health crisis that we're in, how we, with those personal relationships and those 200 million touch points every single year, what we can do to impact and change the trajectory of the system, and use that special bond that we have with patients. So, that's a whole nother area that we can absolutely expand into.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into that topic, right? I don't want to spend too much time on it because I could talk to you all day, but I think that's a big piece, right? How do we truly have that prevention and wellness fit into our roles and our practices, right? Because again, we see so many people where the gatekeepers into the healthcare system. So how does that play in our practice, and how should we start looking at that a little differently than we have previously?
Mm-hmm. You know what the wall in the front of my office says? It says, our mission is prevention of vision loss. Whoa. If you stick on that mission, you save lives. You save lives. So we can start with what we're comfortable with, right? We're comfortable with the visual system, the brain, the optical system, vision. We care about and we understand what it means to lose that special sense that we call vision, right?
Absolutely.
And every bit of advice that we give patients to avert or avoid or delay vision loss improves their health. So just say it like that. You know, why am I telling you got to control your diabetes? Because you don't want to lose your vision. Well, how do you control your diabetes? Well, 5 pounds at a time. That's how you control your diabetes. You know, I don't get off on put the fork down discussion because I ain't going to go anywhere. I'd be skinnier. But you know, those are the conversations you can start to have with patients over time. You know, well, how's your blood pressure, Mr. So and so? Because I see you're on blood pressure medicines. You know, that's one of the leading causes of vision loss and partial vision loss. So make sure you do what your primary care doctor does. We need to support the messages that may or may not be coming out of primary care because that system is so stressed. Yeah. So that's my approach. You know, take it from what you know and educate. I mean, I'm talking to you here, but you know, my 3.0, my dedication to the rest of my career is more about direct to consumer education. I mean, obviously, I'm still practicing, very busy in innovation, but my give back, my philanthropy is really making sure consumers understand. We just finished our second documentary film. It's called Losing Sight, Finding Hope. And it was fully funded by the American Macular Degeneration Foundation. And it's a message for all patients and for all doctors. So I would encourage ODs to check it out. I would encourage them to share it with their patients.
Yeah.
Because it's a great story. And that's an example of what we can do to share.
I love it. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the show, ambassador of hope, right? America's eye doctor, right? And clearly you truly are. You have done so much from your early stages to where you're at now in your career. I have a question for you. One last question for you. You know, and I know you kind of touched on this briefly not too long ago, but you know, when it is time to hang up your phoropter, when it's time to retire, when it's time to go harass your sons and bounce from house to house to make sure that they're taking care of mama, right? What is it that you truly want to be known for? Like, what's the one major thing? Because you've had an incredible career and you've done so much, but if you could leave one thing behind, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I'm going to quote Eleanor Roosevelt. And she once said, if you think that I'm going to go sit by the fire and retire, you're crazy. So that's one thing. But you know, the only thing that I want people to remember me for, you know, I was at a high school reunion once and I was with my husband and my husband said, how would you describe her? And I got the most shocking, it choked me up when this schoolmate of mine, who I wasn't particularly close with, but I knew her, she said she was universally kind. And if that's all I'm known for, I will go and rest in peace under the ground.
I love it. I love it. And you truly are very kind. Now, if they ask my wife that question, you might hear
You're in trouble with your wife right now. But I was blown away and I thought, oh my God, how humbling were those two words. Yeah. And you know, it influenced me to just be more kind, honestly.
Yeah. And you know, I think that circles back to the top of the conversation. It's that global perspective. When you've been able to, you know, live in different places, travel to different places, meet different people, it gives you a different perspective on life. You now have a different insight on how people think, how they move, different cultures. So you have no choice but to be kind. It becomes really innate, right? It's just like one of those things that you're kind of naturally born with due to the way that you were raised, right? So it makes perfect sense. And I think that's fantastic. You know, if folks want to get in touch with you, if they want to maybe partner with you or maybe even have you as a consultant, especially for rural practices or just innovation and technology in their practice, you know, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You know, I think the easiest way is LinkedIn. You know, I'm on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn. You'll get updated on everything that I'm doing. I know you young people use Instagram and all that stuff. But I try to stick with only a couple things. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. People can email me. Dr. Dorothy at Hitchmoth Eyecare. .com is a great way to get in touch with me. You can bug Dr. Glover. He knows how to get me. I'm at meetings, and I love to talk to people I've never met in the profession or otherwise. I will be at Vision Expo in a few weeks here at the end of September. If you happen to be attending that, I will be at Dr. Dre's with the infamous Dr. Alan Glazer, who's also part of our team at Percept. So whether it be live, on Zoom, social media, or email, just reach out. Don't be afraid. I don't bite because I'm universally kind.
And I'll be at Vision Expo West as well. I look forward to seeing everyone out there. I'm always going to go out and support my man, Alan Glazer. He throws the best parties. You're talking about another fantastic person that's really kind. Alan is a very kind person. Mm-hmm. Just the platform he's created with ODs on Facebook has given a lot of knowledge to thousands and thousands of ODs. Mm-hmm. It's given them a platform to be able to communicate with each other from all across the world. But super kind person, and just really enjoy his energy and everything that he's done for optometry as well.
Absolutely. And we are good friends, Dr. Glazer and I, and it's a privilege to call him friend. And, his platform is amazing. And you can reach out to me on that platform too.
One last question before we end the show. We touched on the 21st century office, right? Mm-hmm. If you could give your colleagues out there listening one piece of advice to make that change or to implement something in their practice, what would it be?
Just be inspired. Just be inspired. Love what you do. Know that you're needed and know that you are smart. That's a lot of little things, but I think there's a collective, sometimes poor self-esteem in optometry, but you are smart, people. You were the top 1% just to become a doctor. Yep. Don't let anybody tell you that doesn't have value and that you don't have something to contribute. You're amazing, and you just keep going and go at it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Dorothy. I appreciate it. You are truly America's eye doctor. You are truly an ambassador of hope. You are truly an innovator. Thank you so much for everything that you have done and everything that you will continue to do. Friends and family, thank you so much for tuning in to Optometry's #1 podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to YouTube. Make sure you check us out on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it, we are there. Thank you again. Until next time, stay healthy, stay positive, stay blessed. Peace. All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the D-Focus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And if it did, be sure to give us 5 stars. And make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you named it. And our handle is at D-Focus Media on all platforms. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.